Hi, everybody. This is Josh from Pomeroy Creative with a presentation on branding, because branding can sometimes be this obscure, elusive word that isn't very well understood among both designers, creative professionals, marketers, and business owners alike. It is a very important idea that needs to be understood and considered at a very high level of detail for every successful business. What is branding? Let's maybe start by looking at the word brand and its origin to see if that can help us understand this concept a little better. Etymology tells us that the word brand is derived from the ancient North Scandinavian term brandr, meaning to burn. It is a reference to the practice of using branding irons to burn a mark into the hides of livestock, and may also refer to the practice of craftsmen engraving brand names into products, tools, or personal belongings. So we can see how this concept of visual communication of ownership was very useful even early on. Now let's see how it has evolved and grown into what is most often referred to today when we hear the word branding. The modern definition from the American Marketing Association states that a brand is a name, term, design, symbol, or any other feature that identifies one seller's goods or services as distinct from those of other sellers. That actually covers a lot of different things. This means that a brand is more than a logo, a color scheme, or a name, or a mark that's burned into a product, but it includes all of those elements. And at its core, it's still communicating identity and ownership. Here are some examples of some well-known brands represented here only by their logos. A logo is a symbol, a visual mark that is very important to a brand and should be easily recognizable, even in a field of visual noise and a saturated market. Take a few seconds to see if you can pick out and identify some of the well-known brands here represented just by their logos. At Pomeroy Creative, we've broken down the core elements of what we think make a strong brand into three concepts to help us discuss this concept a little more easily and provide some more language, some more terms that we can reference later on. Our hope is to simplify this idea both internally and as we talk with clients and other professionals to help them understand this a little bit better as well, to be more successful. Each one of these core elements supports and relies on the other to build a successful and strong brand. So let's start with the most obvious, the concept that faces the audience. The pieces that we see with our eyes. That's, of course, the visuals. Visuals include logos, symbols, and marks, like we just saw on the previous slide, but also photography, images, colors, and any other visible aspect that represents and supports the identity of an entity. Visual brand language is the unique alphabet of design elements, all these things combined, such as shapes, colors, materials, finish, typography, and composition. Using these things together, we can create a language, a system that helps us communicate. These elements directly and subliminally communicate a company's values and personality through compelling imagery and design styles. So we can see these concepts bleed right into the next. Personality. Brand personality is a set of human characteristics that are attributed to a brand name. A brand personality is something to which a customer can relate. An effective brand increases its brand equity by having a consistent set of traits that a specific consumer segment enjoys. Brand personality is a framework that helps a company or organization shape the way people feel about its product, service, or mission. I want to emphasize that word feel because now we're getting into emotions, and that's our next core element. An emotional bond must be developed between the consumer and the product for a brand to be successful. We're talking about relationships. Emotion may trigger actions depending on its nature and the reason for the person having that emotion. And that's good for businesses. We want our customers to have positive experiences and enjoy interacting with our products and services. Emotions happen as feedback of what one makes, how they feel about a situation, such as a brand consumption experience. With digital media being a normal part of life, brands have to evolve and consider every potential application possible in order to compete and provide a good experience for their audience or consumer. Brands have to translate this visual language, this alphabet of visual communication, into every possible medium, or they will suffer in today's fast-paced marketplace. And here are just some examples of some brands using the web in a visually compelling way to communicate their message. Print is another medium that requires different knowledge in order to produce messaging that stands out. And here are a few examples of that. So what I want you to see is that these are all deployable mediums. They're tools. They're pieces of communication content that have been put together with that visual alphabet, that visual language, to help communicate the personality and to help establish emotion as they communicate identity to their potential clients. So both print and digital and every other form that these deployable pieces take are part of the whole brand. The elements that we focus on when working on branding for a client are the logos, the marks, the symbols. What we try to do is create an identity system. We look at the mark, going back to the origin of the word brand. The smallest, most simplest piece that we could possibly create that is the most distinct, like a brand fingerprint, like a business signature that can be easily identified and distinguished from all the other competition. That's what we try to create. But that's not the only thing that we have to consider. We also look at assets, what we call visual collateral, all of the other supporting elements that are most often used in conjunction with the logos and typography when putting together those different deployable mediums of visual communication. So what we try to do is create a asset library, a visual collection of pieces that help support and communicate ownership and identity that we can pull from to create those deployable pieces. So graphic design, layout, and deployment is the end goal. It helps to take a holistic approach or even work backwards from deployment to understand the end goal even before making the first stroke on paper or moving one pixel on the screen. And here are the goals for each of those categories I mentioned earlier. Let me go back to that slide. Remember, we broke down what a good brand is made of, what it consists of in these three core elements: the visuals, the personality, and emotion. These three things working together to achieve these goals. What we want is for the brands that we work with to be recognizable. That's what the visuals are for. We want potential customers to be able to pick out their brand in a field of visual noise quickly and consistently. This is where we're building broad or wide. We want as many people to recognize the brands that we work on and be able to quickly identify them and understand the ownership. But more than that, we want them to have resonance. The personality that's communicated through those visuals, through those consistently communicated set of characteristics, begin to resonate with customers and potential customers of the brands that we work with, creating resonance and empathy. They understand their customers. They understand me. I can relate. That's building deeper. And finally, and ultimately, what we hope to achieve by communicating emotion is to establish relationships. That's the goal. So each three of these core elements has a specific purpose in mind, and we like to design according to purpose rather than preference. I hope that you've been able to see that a brand is more than just a logo or a few pieces of visual content. It's how those pieces are used to communicate ownership and identity, and how they can relate to your potential customers to encourage loyalty and trust. A visual language and an identity system is an incredibly important part of that process in growing recognition, gaining resonance, and cultivating relationships with customers who will look forward to interacting with your brand. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.